You all brought some friends too with you. Can you say hello to your little friends?
Uh,
Woo!
Bring bring that
So,
gold man with us.
spoiler alert, this all worked out. And exciting to be with you all this morning. Academy Gold. We got the production track, we got Gold Extension, we got the alumni of Academy Gold, and our partner company interns. So welcome to you all. Excited to have you here and for this bright light of sunshine that we're going to enjoy today, the making of Hair Love. Let me give you a brief introduction, and then we're going to have the special treat that gets it all going. First, we'll be joined by Matthew A. Cherry, who is director, writer, producer of this wonderful Academy Award-winning project. And joining Matthew will be Karen Tolliver, who's a producer on the film, but also an EVP of Creative at Sony Pictures Animation. So with that, we're going to actually see the short again. I think some of you've seen it already in advance of the ceremony last year, or this year, lifetime ago. But let's watch the short, and then we'll dive into the making of.
Just took a little bit of work and a whole lot of love. Mwah. Are you ready to do this? All right, here we go. See? Now, wasn't that easy? See? Now, wasn't that easy? All it takes is some confidence confidence and a willingness to get started. And even though I'm not there, I'll guide you through this. I want to thank my very special assistant, my daughter Zuri, for helping me with today's vlog, like always. And remember, the road ahead might look rough, but you can make the journey with a little bit of work and a whole lot of love. Mwah. Are you ready to do this? All right, here we go. First, we want to moisturize these beautiful thick curls with a leave-in conditioner, which will also help detangle the kinks. Now, part all your hair into sections and clip it away. You're doing an amazing job. Yay, you did it! That was so much fun. I knew you could do it.
Gonna be alright, cause it's already alright. Right, gonna be alright, cause it's already alright. Yeah. Happy days, happy days, happy days, happy days. Whoa, that's life when you do right. 10 feet tall and a mile high. Happy days, happy days, happy days, happy days. Whoa, that's life when you live right. Finally got a piece of the pie.
So thank you all again for being here, and please join me in welcoming Matthew Cherry and Karen Tolliver.
Hey guys, how you doing?
There you are. Hello.
Hey, Rickson, thanks for having us.
There. Welcome. I think you all brought some friends too with you. Can you say hello to your little friends?
Bring bring that gold man with us.
Spoiler alert, this all worked out. So let's talk about the journey from beginning to those new roommates that you all have. So let's start out by talking about the inspiration for the story. I'd love to begin with you, Matthew, to just give us a sense of where this idea came from and how was it brought to life at the very early stages.
Oh man, this journey started about 3 years ago. Actually 4 years ago. I'll take it back to the earliest point. I remember watching the Oscars the year of 2016, and try to make a habit of watching it every year. And for this year in particular, I don't know why I was paying like extra attention to like all the categories, not just director, best picture and everything else, and watching documentary short and sound editing and sound mixing. And I came across the animated short category, and I've had this idea kind of already in my head. And I remember after watching, I forget who won that year, watching them win, getting the same statue that, director and best picture got. And I remember calling my manager, Monica Young, who's a producer on the project too, and being like, Monica, like, you know what? I was like, I got an idea for an animated short film. And I was like, and I literally told her this. I was like, and if we do this right, I was like, I think we could mess around and win an Oscar. And, you know, she didn't laugh at me because we had never done an animated project before. And, you know, she was just like very encouraging. She was like, all right, let's try to figure it out. And I remember in 2016, I put a tweet out saying that I had an Oscar-worthy animated short film idea. I had come across this image of, it was a 3D image from this artist in Brazil named Julian Santiago. And it was a African-American, or not African-American, but a Afro-Latino father. He was like sitting at his workstation trying to draw. And his daughter was like sitting on his lap looking up at him. And, you know, just kind of the initial inspiration in terms of imagery for the film. And I put the tweet out trying to see if I can get some 3D artists to holler at me. And it kind of fell on deaf ears a little bit, you know, for whatever reason. And I kind of forgot about it and ended up doing a movie that I shot on iPhones called 9 Rides that was shot in the course of a week and around the week of Thanksgiving 2016. And then we ended up getting into South by Southwest. And then, you know, that project always kind of was in the back of my mind and I was trying to figure it out. And I came across this artist, Vashti Harrison, who a friend of mine, a filmmaker named Nigella Moomin, had posted a picture that she drew of her for her birthday around the summer of 2017. And I had never seen somebody draw black hair like this. You know, it was very accurate. You know, Nigella has, you know, incredible braids and natural hairstyles. And I reached out to Vashti and I was like, look, you know, I've been thinking about this project. I can't get out of my mind. I'm thinking about doing a animated short film. And, you know, I would love to see if you would be down to do some artwork for us. And, you know, she was down. I had talked to Monica about it. You know, we did the Kickstarter campaign and, you know, kind of the rest was history. And if you move forward on the next slide, you know, a lot of amazing things kind of happened from it. You know, we offered different gifts like, you know, a picture book, which ended up becoming a New York Times bestseller. We offered different gifts like pins and T-shirts and all kind of things. And if you go to the next slide, you know, we ended up having our initial goal was of $75,000, and we ended up setting this record of almost $300,000 that we raised in the course of 30 days. And till this day, it's still the highest grossing short film Kickstarter in the history of the platform. And we just had so many great people back the project, people like Jordan Peele and Chris Rock and Chance the Rapper, Chelsea Clinton, Dwayne Wade, Gabrielle Union, you know, so many great people. And it was just crazy because I remember we had a list of all the different press outlets that we wanted to cover the Kickstarter campaign. And, you know, oftentimes like when you're doing a Kickstarter, you know, it's all like pretty much a pipe dream in terms of like, hopefully these people will respond to you. And within the first week of the project, every single outlet that we had like on our target had reached out to us before we even had a chance to reach out to them. So it was just magic on this project ever since the beginning. And, you know, for us, it was just, I think it was the combination of being inspired by a lot of these viral videos of dads that were doing their daughter's hair. And we knew that if we could capture that same magic that, you know, we would be successful in terms of raising the money. And, you know, I just think also we dropped this Kickstarter at a time where it was like kind of right before this whole inclusion and diversity push that has happened recently in the world of animation. You know, this is before Moana came out. This is before Coco. This is before Into the Spider-Verse. And, you know, people were really just clamoring to see themselves represented in this medium that, you know, Karen said in her speech is the first form of filmmaking that we're exposed to, you know, and when you don't see yourself, especially when you're young, it really does a number on your self-confidence. And, you know, I just think it was one of those situations where we're like kind of right place, right time.
Like Matthew said, I mean, when I became aware of the project, it was before all of those things, before Moana and Coco and those things. And I had been working in animation as an executive, you know, first at Disney Pictures, then I was at Fox for 10 years. I worked on the Ice Age franchise, I worked on Rio, and then I was just at the end of Fox and coming to Sony when I knew Monica Young, who was one of the producers and Matthew's manager. socially, but we didn't even know really what each other did. So all this, lead up as Matthew got the idea and did the Kickstarter, they were looking for someone, to kind of help them through the animation process. And I was lucky enough that I was one of the few, Monica asked if I could help her, help these guys kind of produce it. And having never in my career been able to work on a project about Black people, that's so personal, there's no way to say no. You just know how important it is. You knew how personal it would be and how fun it would be, but I had huge caveats because I was like, I'd never, ever worked on anything like this on this level. The movies that I work on are big, hundreds, $1 million movies. And there's a whole infrastructure of how these movies get made and, technical people and all that. And, my expertise is sort of in the front end of like story and overseeing the story and really kind of helping put the pieces together and putting the team together. So, when asked and, again, they raised an incredible amount of money, on Kickstarter, but it was still like, small to kind of get something to the caliber that Matthew wanted. My biggest, caveat was like, just know I have absolutely no idea how to do this. I know what your goal is. I know what your intent, and his intent was everything. It was really what led us all through every stage of the process, because we knew he wanted that gold. We wanted that gold. We were going to figure it out. But really doing it at a small scale, with that, those means are, more difficult than, you would think. And, like the image that's here, we knew that we were going to be telling a story about a Black family in a short, and that had never really been done. And so the goal and holding the responsibility of that was really high on our minds, because we knew that they had to be beautiful. We knew it had to look great. In the first couple of choices, I think if you go to the next slide, we knew we were dealing with hair. And again, Vashti's image was so beautiful that we had to make a choice pretty early on whether we were going to do CG or 2D. And we knew that it was going to be very difficult on the budget that we had to really do the loving care that we needed for this family and represent hair and make it really a personality. So, and retain the beauty of Vashti's design. So pretty quickly on, we knew that 2D was really going to be the way to go. And we just had to figure out who was going to be able to do it, because it just had to look great.
Let's talk about the character design. So we're getting into the deep heart of animation now.
Oh, yeah.
So everybody hold on to your hats. Let's talk about these characters and the process of bringing them to life for the short.
Yeah, let me set the stage and then I'll pass it to Karen. So when we did our initial Kickstarter campaign, the dad actually looked way different than he looks in our final design. He was like a little bigger. We described him as a gentle giant. He had locks, but he was looked like he may have been in like his mid 40s. I'll say he looked a little safer, quote unquote. And when Karen came on board, I think one of the best ideas that she had was, the idea of just like really pushing the imagery of how we perceive Steven. It really looked like, it really felt like an opportunity for us to normalize young Black fathers, because that's a very specific segment of mainstream media where, young Black men are often vilified and you don't really see them in these more kind of softer, nurturing roles. And, studies have shown that, Black men are amongst the biggest and most involved when it comes to their kids' lives, whether they're with the mother or not. And, that was one of Karen's biggest things I felt like she brought to the project, because it just really, I think, for a lot of people, just made it even more relatable and grounded, and just really represents what the modern family looks like. It's not, families being 40 plus in the house and a white picket fence. It's a little less linear. And, so definitely, I just wanted to give major props to Karen for bringing that idea, because I think that was the thing that really opened it up.
So yeah, so this was the challenge with animation is, every level of detail, just makes it more difficult to animate. And so we had the challenge of taking like Vashti's drawings, which is so beautiful and very delicate and detailed in the book. And as Matthew said, sort of, and everything about this process with Hair Love was unconventional, right? So that was another thing I learned, like, don't worry about what you've been told. Like, usually you either get a book and then you make a short, or maybe you make I guess that people don't even make a short and then make a book. So the fact that this was going on at the same time is highly unusual. And so, because usually one would drive the other. So we knew that we wanted Vashti's designs to be really important, but these designs from a technical standpoint felt too detailed to really kind of allow the animators to do their thing, particularly with the budget that we had. So part of our journey was to figure out how to make sure that you could identify Zuri as the book went along and people were going to get to know her in the book, but make sure that she was representative enough in the short so that she felt like the same character. But at the same time, you know, we were using all sorts of ideas of like how graphic we wanted the character to be in the short, and had to figure out how to translate that. So that was really important, and there was a lot of technical things that we sort of had to figure out to make that work. But again, our team was amazing, and a lot of it was about hair and the software that we were using. So there's a process called Harmony, and that's a 2D software, but we had to figure out how to sort of translate this in this, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And but so this is sort of the first designs, and then we can keep going forward, and you can see more of how she evolved through the process. And Vashti did these again, these expression sheets, and we fell in love, you know, and that's what helped get the money for the Kickstarter, because people felt like they already knew this girl. And so we had to really protect Zuri through the process so that we didn't lose her. And if you go to the next one, then we started looking at how to simplify that design, you know, and used other references. So here's a series of picture books that had a much more sort of graphic look and a simplified look. So the exercise was how much could you scale down images and still kind of get the connectivity. So we love the beauty and the elegance and simplicity of this book, Island Born. And that was a big inspiration as we kind of moved forward. There was Ezra Keith's Snowy Day. There's a lot of just beautiful stuff. And then Tiffany Ford was a character designer that we fell in love with and actually wanted to work with on the short. But we really were exploring the color, the use of color, and how that really kind of translated into the characters. And then, yeah, then there's many others that finally led us to the design you see with Zuri, I think, in the next, and this is sort of what we landed on. So that was sort of the journey of, you know, the book or illustrated version of Zuri to the one that we found in animation. The other key, and we'll talk about this in a minute, but the contrast between how we wanted the characters to look, which again had more detail, but we really wanted to kind of keep an artistic appeal to each of the frames of the thing. So it was really as beautiful and painterly as possible. So you'll notice when we get to the backgrounds, they're not as detailed. They're much more sort of watercolor and sort of expression kind of a vibe more than the characters.
Yeah, and you know, as you can see, even with this is probably the first iteration of Zuri, and while obviously she retains some of the charm, you know, kind of from Vashti's initial drawing, you know, for me, I was like, we can always do a little bit better. And you know, you can see how, you know, when Bruce Smith came on board and was able to really get in there and into the details, and you know, how small things like, you know, slightly tweaking the profile, adjusting the ear location, having the belly protrude a little bit, smaller feet, you know, so many small details that, you know, an artist with as much experience as Bruce, you know, he just totally brings to the table. It just makes her so much more cuter and have so much more appeal. And if you go to the next slide, these are also some different things that we did to try to, and you know, make her as cute as possible. And this ended up being our final design. And a lot of it was just a lot of tweaking, you know, making sure that her skin color was, you know, a certain way, making sure the hair texture looked a very certain way, because, you know, as you guys know, in mainstream media, you know, so often certain images are pushed to the forefront, especially when it comes to Black women. And for us, it was very important that her hair was as kinky as we could make it. You know, she was brown. More a browner skin tone, you know, things like making the mom a little darker than her and the father, you know, just like small things that, you know, I think on the surface may not seem like a big deal, but were things that, you know, once the short film was released, there are things that we constantly were getting comments on, you know, about things that they loved, you know, especially the hair texture. These are some of the early hairstyle designs that we did. As you know, Black women, like, their hair is a superpower, and you can style it in many different ways. And we just wanted to see what different hairstyles would look on our Zuri's cute face. So these were some of the hairstyles that we did. And you go to the next one.
And of course, in animation, I would just say that, you know, every time you change a hairstyle, you're changing the rig, you're doing a lot to it. So this is where 6 Point shows how they were actually able to do the hair in sections to really kind of give it the volume that it wanted. I think if you hit play, it should turn around. You can see a little bit of what that looks like.
Yeah, and so this was our model that we used in the short film. As you can see, the hair is kind of in different sections. And if you go to the next one, these are like literally just like a whole a sheet of just all the different hairstyles that we had in Mom's YouTube page. You know, just really trying to represent the full breadth of Black hair. And you know, the vlog was a really great opportunity to showcase that.
Let's go forward a slide. I think we're going to move into look development. Karen, you talked about this a bit before. If we go a little bit further in terms of the palette and the painterly vision of the film. So give us a bit more and sort of sharpen this view on the less sharp view of the scenery.
Sure. Yeah, again, we really had high intentions about how beautiful we wanted this to look. And we had reference of shorts, like there was a short called Dam Keeper that was very inspirational to us because it did have a beautiful watercolor kind of aesthetic. And so again, knowing that we had a path for the character designs because of the book and Vashti, we thought the backgrounds were really where we could go crazy. And so, you know, the first thing we do, and again, I'm not an artist, we really leaned on Stacey Newton and Everett Downing to really help us dig deep on this and pull reference. And, you know, they're the first go-to for any animator is sort of Maurice Noble, who did a bunch of the Looney Tunes. And there's just something really gorgeous about his work. And it's very simple. You've got the broad, you know, colors and the simple pencil lines. And we really were inspired by that look. If you go forward, you can see the coloring and just so much that even without any characters in there, the background themselves kind of stood apart. And that was really the inspiration. We wanted to use color in a really bold way. We just found these really gorgeous. And then there was another artist, Walter Paraguay, who worked on 101 Dalmatians. So this was incredibly, again, just very stylized, but really got the idea across. You don't want the backgrounds to really stand out too much. You really want to support the foreground, of course, but we thought that these designs were just amazing. And there was one other, Helen Lundberg, who's a surrealist painter they introduced us to. So all of this was sort of the ammunition to kind of put just what this inspiration for how we wanted these to look. And so that was the question, is can you really reduce this to color and shape? You know, how much could we get away with? And this image that you'll see is Zuri in the background. I think when our designer, Maria Yee, who's amazing, and when she really kind of synthesized this look in the bathroom, we realized this was it. This really kind of gave us the look that we wanted. We loved how rich and beautiful the background was. We liked how it let Zuri pop in the front. And we were like, okay, every shot of this short should feel like a painting like this. And if we can get that across, I think we're in good shape. And so it was really about, you know, broad brushwork and just really kind of getting that painterly look. And so that's really the first thing we did. And then we went on to the other locations. You'll see, you know, and the funny thing again, in terms of the amount of work we did, is that there's one location here you never see in the short, the living room on the bottom right, but, you know, which was sad because it was like one of our favorite. And as we were, you know, designing, we're like, you know, we're on World Market, picking furniture and really kind of really giving love to this. And again, you know, Matthew can speak to this, but like, it was, again, very grounded. Like, we know where they live, we know what kind of building it was, and all of that was really important.
Yeah. Yeah. We spoke about, you know, this family being from Chicago, you know, very much, you know, not quite middle class, but, you know, working their way up, and which is so much the experience of a lot of young 20-year-olds, you know, that are either fresh out of college or, you know, are going into their late 20s. And, you know, we wanted the apartment in Brownstone that they lived in to really reflect that. And so if you go to the next slide, you'll see an early model of the bathroom, which we knew was going to play such a big part of the short film, because Zuri was going to be in there doing her hairstyles, and it also be the location when Dad stepped up and was able to do her hairstyle the correct way. And so this early design was done in SketchUp, and then you see the final design, how beautiful that is. I mean, every time I see this, I'm just like, that literally looks like the bathroom that I grew up in Chicago, with the old school radiator and the tiles and you know, the brick. And even the little drawing above the toilet, you know, it's just it just has so much charm, you know. And so, and a lot of the stuff really evolved as well. If you go to the next one, and you'll see this is kind of an early version and iteration of what we thought Zuri's bedroom was look like. As you can see, there's a lot of pink, around. And, you know, one thing that we talked about is just like, come on, you know, it's when we were working on this is 2017, 2018, 2019. And, you know, we don't necessarily have to lean into like the stereotypical color palette that, you know, young girls are into. You know, we can kind of push it and make it a little less, you know, a little bit more, you know, non-binary. So if you go to the next slide, you know, you can see that we ended up going with the blue wall instead of all pink everything, you know, kind of having more pink and purple accents, and really coming with the brown hardwood floors to give it a lot of charm. And then the last one is the hospital. And, you know, when we got this design, we were just, I don't think we had any notes. It just looked so good. You know,
We almost forgot we needed the hospital. That I remember. It was like, okay, wait, we forgot to design the hospital. I guess we need to do that.
yeah, you know, again, just this is so beautiful. And a majority of this was just more like location, like, okay, she's going to be at the window. All right, we need to, you know, move the TV and everything else, and just making sure that this looked authentic. And, you know, again, Maria did an incredible job.
It's incredible. I'd love to talk about how you develop the story. You have 6.5 minutes to tell these 3 people's lives, plus the cat. Let's talk a bit about that journey.
I'd worked a lot in music videos and a lot of short form filmmaking, and I, you know, always loved like trying to figure out twist endings and like things that kind of, you know, will shock the system a little bit, but are also additive to the narrative. And, you know, for me, the idea of them going through this whole journey of trying to do her hair, but then you see the reason, and the reason is because mom has lost confidence in herself and thinking that she's maybe not as beautiful as she once was because she's lost her hair. And the idea that Zuri was able to get her dad to do her hair in the style that her mom used to do, you know, it's so encompassing and just adds on like a nice little dimension, and also showcases that they're a nuclear family, and kind of teasing the idea that maybe he's a single dad. What happened to the mom? You know, you kind of introduce all these questions in the beginning, and you know, I think people really appreciated the fact that mom was alive, you know, at the end. And then also, you know, it went even up until the credits, you know, the different end credits that we had that showed mom's hair growing back during each slide, you know, just things like that just showcase like, okay, she's not only is she, you know, going home, but now she's getting better. And, you know, they're going to actually have a happy ending. So, yeah, we can get into a little bit of the story development. Go to the next slide. So, you know, in animation, and this is my first experience with this, I mean, so much of it is just like, you know, redoing and watching amongst a collective group of people. And all right, let's all give notes on it, what's working, what isn't, and just you constantly are refining and making sure that it's right. And I love that compared to live action filmmaking, which I have a lot of experience in that, you know, a lot of times being a filmmaker is like very isolating, and you're feeling like a lot of the decisions are on your shoulders, and, you know, it kind of lives and dies with the director. But the thing I love about animation is like, you know, you may not have the best idea, and that's okay. You know, you can take from whoever, and if it makes sense, you know, you add it to the final project, and it's very collaborative. And so this was an original ending that we had conceived. This is probably one of the earlier beginnings of the short film that we had. And go ahead and play it, and I'll explain to you why we changed it. So ignore the creepy guy in the background. He came with the design of the of the set. You know, so this version of the beginning was like, you know, we were trying to get a lot of information across. We knew that the short film wasn't going to have words, so we were going to have to really show a lot. And the idea of this was, you know, dad is exhausted. You know, he's been on his own for a couple of weeks trying to take care of Zuri, and also is trying to work on his music because he's a music producer. And you know, just also really wanting to showcase how independent Zuri is. You know, she's able to make breakfast. She's able to pick up, you know, after herself. And, you know, she's trying to sneak by her dad to grab his iPad so that she can like get into these hair designs. And the thing that we notice is like, okay, dad just looks like a horrible parent. You know, he looks lazy. He looks like he's just like knocked out, you know, we're not really able to set up the reason why. And so we agreed that, you know, Dad needed to be more active in order to get that same information across. And then if you go to the next one, we can show you the 2.0 version of that, trying to show Dad being a little bit more active. So, you know, so this version of it, you know, shows Dad being way more active and definitely gets across the fact that he's overwhelmed. You know, he's trying to pick up after himself. You know, food is burning on the stove. He's tripping over stuff. And the thing that we found is that obviously with a short film, you want to keep it as tight as possible. And we felt that there was a way to essentially introduce him later in the story, just to kind of set up Zuri's journey of being very much an active kid, being confident in herself, being able to get herself ready and to get into the bathroom. And we decided that, you know, we could bring in Dad a little later in the story and introduce him in that moment that you saw in the final short film, where he's like kind of walking across with the laundry basket and drops it and is immediately kind of dropped into the story in that way. And so the next clip that you'll see that we ended up cutting out, which is the last bit that we'll show you in terms of some of the early story stuff that didn't make it, was this idea of really trying to set up Zuri. You know, we realized that we wanted Zuri to be very active. You know, one of the biggest questions with animation is, why are we animating it? You know, like, if this is live action, you know, you need to add things in there that really justifies the use of the medium. And one thing that we realized that we wanted was these fantasy sequences, you know, and the initial idea was Zuri having a big imagination, and when she's swiping through the hairstyles, she sees, she imagines herself with these different hairstyles and what she may be doing in the world with those hairstyles. And so let's play it, and I'll break it down a little more. Right. And so obviously those scenes are very cute. You know, the big thing for us, though, that ended up happening was tonally, the fact that we were living in Zuri's fantasies for as long as we were, felt like they were stepping on the more serious ending of the short film, where we were going to be dealing with, obviously, you know, Mom being sick, and we didn't really want to step on that as much. And we came to this decision that it would be best to kind of quickly get through Zuri trying to figure out the different hairstyles, and also make the cat a little bit more active in her decision making. And then in terms of the fantasies, actually giving that to Dad and having that be a way that he can, you know, express like his fears in terms of this daunting task of trying to do his daughter's hair, and you know, that not stepping on the tone of the ending, you know, as much as us living in Zuri's fantasies for so long. So, you know, those are some deleted scenes from the short film that exclusive group of you have been able to see. And Karen will run you through some of the animation process.
Yeah, and that's really the secret sauce. If there's one thing that is, you know, the reason why I love animation so much, is that ability to just write and rewrite and learn by seeing it up, you know, many, many times. I think that when we were really kicking hard on this, it was probably a year-long process, but the first what do you think, like the first 9 months were really about just rewriting these storyboards and making sure that they were right and getting everybody's notes to get it right. So yeah, so then the next stage is animation. And this was really important to us. And again, why we really needed Bruce Smith to come in, because we knew we really wanted these characters to move as beautifully as possible. And none of us had worked in Harmony before. We knew it mostly from television shows, and, you know, again, wanted to just make it as fluid as possible. So we were able to kind of figure out a process by which we could sort of get the best of both worlds. So we wanted to search for great 2D animators, hand-drawn animators that could really give us the fluidity of what we wanted. And then they could put it into the system called Harmony. And what Harmony does is it builds a rig or a model for the characters. And you're able to actually take the 2D animation that you do first and apply it to the rig. So the rig can kind of follow the movements of the 2D animators. So the first clip I want to show you is an amazing animator, Mike Owens, and you'll see sort of how fluid and sort of cartoony you can make it. And then, you know, we'll show you what the final is. Yeah, so when you do 2D, you can see sort of the squash and stretch and just sort of the personality that can come out. So we really loved what Mike was bringing there. And it allowed him to sort of really find the character without working in the model, and he didn't know that system. So we were able to do that. And then if you move to, I believe, the next one, you can see what the final looks like. So you get some of that performance in the storyboards, but really it came to life in animation.
It's really so beautiful and so worthy of the ambition you all had for it, and just an incredible piece of art. So congratulations on that. We're going to go to questions, so everyone's going to get teed up. In the meantime, I'm going to start off with this question that's more Academy Gold focused. So many of our students are really thinking about and working on pitching their ideas as a project for the Gold program. Curious as to, you know, when you went in the room to pitch this in your pitch sessions, you know, a few questions in that regard. You know, who was involved in that first pitch? You know, in terms of your team, who was in the room from the other side, and did you go through the whole deck in the way you did for us today, or so? What did that look like? So, who on your side, who on their side? What'd you show them, and what happened?
I love that you think that we pitched this. We kind of Kickstarter was our pitch. You know, we went straight to the people. You know, I think that's something that, you know, I think is so amazing about the world today with social media. You know, if you build up your following enough, or if you have enough people that will support your vision, or if you've proven that, you know, you're the type of person that will follow through on things, you know, you can take it to the internet and crowdfund. And you know, sometimes strange things happen. Sometimes you just never know. You know, you may be dropping a project at the perfect time, and the right person retweets it, and now it goes viral. And now, you know, now it's on studios' radars. You know, the thing for us is that I knew for a fact that if I would have went to Disney, Pixar, you know, maybe even Sony, and, you know, without having proven anything and been like, hey, I want to do a short film about a Black dad that's doing his daughter's hair, you know, I probably would have got laughed out the room. You know what I mean? In a way. And the reason I say that is also because, you know, 9 times out of 10, it's also about the executives that are on the other side of the table and people that are able to relate to these experiences. You know, Sony is great in that they have people like Karen, you know, that are actually decision makers that are able to see, you know, the humanity. And I think in stories that are a little broader, and a little bit more inclusive, you know, that's not the case with a lot of other studios. And I think that, you know, in terms of being a creative nowadays, you just have to bet on yourself and do the work, and be that a short film, be that a, you know, a presentation, you know, or just trying to raise the money and kind of bringing the attention and the momentum to you. That's what we did, you know. So I'll say Kickstarter was our pitch pages, and, you know, having you raise 300,000 and, you know, going viral, that just gave us so much more momentum to be able to have conversations with people like Karen.
And just to jump in, I mean, you're right. Sony doesn't have a shorts program. So the only reason, so my involvement was as an outside producer doing it just on the love of the project until it started to gain momentum and we could actually show what we were doing. And then Sony got on board and realized how important it was. But Matthew's exactly right. Going to the people and the people proving that there's a need made my job much easier. I don't know I couldn't have done it without that. The funny thing though is we did, as we're doing a television show version of this. The thing about that was the first time I'd ever been on the other side pitching to a network. Like, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm usually on this side. So that was the scary part is just, but it didn't hurt having an Academy win behind us.
Do you bring the statue with you and just slam on the table and say,
Yeah, that was a pitch. That was a pitch.
How you like me now?
To be fair, they knew it was valuable before we won the Oscar. So props to HBO for really kind of seeing that beauty.
Yep.
Fantastic. So our Academy Gold folks are here with us. So we're going to start out with our questions. Destiny, you're up first. Hello.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for coming.
Oh, thanks for having us.
I wanted to ask one question because my biggest fear as a Black creator is that my Black mind will have to be compromised and for coming off socially or politically correct. So I wanted to know, as Black creators, have you ever felt through this process that you have to compromise yourself, and how did you go about that and stand your ground?
You know what's so interesting is that I've always been pretty outspoken, especially when things aren't right. And, for the most part, it's worked for me. I haven't been, I've yet to be, have a seat here and let me show you your Twitter timeline and kind of where you're messing up, But I think, I think that's something that everybody struggles with. You want to be your authentic self. I do think that there is pressure to compromise yourself. You may be trying to sell a project and people are like, well, if you maybe tone this down or tone that down, then maybe we'll buy it. And I think you just have to be in a position where you're able to make that decision. Like, is it worth compromising that? And if it isn't, know that everything isn't for everybody. Maybe it's not destined for you to work with that network. There was a story that came out about Michaela Cole, who has that new series out on HBO, I May Destroy You, and how, she went to Netflix. They were trying to get a certain level of ownership, and she said no, and she stepped away, and she knew her value. And then, HBO stepped in, and I don't know exactly what her terms were, but they had to be more amenable to what she wanted to do, and she ended up going with them. And so I think it's just situations like that. Like, the more that you work in this industry, I think the more leverage you'll have to kind of get your unflinching, unapologetic vision out there. But when you are starting out, you may have to make some compromises. And I think it's just a matter of like, are those things that you're willing to live with to kind of get ahead or to try to get those first couple opportunities or not? And don't feel like you have to do that. You can maybe do something and take it straight to the people and prove it that way. And then you could be like, this is a proven entity that people will support, and take it or leave it,
Ashley, you're up next.
Hi, Matthew and Karen. It's really great to meet both of you. This film means so much to me, like personally. It's just, it captured so much of my childhood so perfectly on screen. So it was really exciting to see. And I want to thank you both for showing us the concept art and clips, and I hope that they'll make their way into the actual series on HBO too, because they look really, really cool, especially the superhero concept.
Oh, for sure.
And so for both of you, my question's really general, but if you had any advice for aspiring Black writers or producers who are trying to enter the industry, I'd love to hear it. And from both of you, are there any other genres that you're interested in exploring, whether it's animation or otherwise?
You want to go first, Carrie?
Well, I'm excited for you. I remember like just trying to, start your career is scary, but it's also really exciting to kind of just get going and just all the possibilities. And, I just think that, when I talk to writers, and this, that, it has to be something obviously that you can't not do, because you're going to face so many obstacles that you're just, you have to be so passionate that there's just nothing else that you could imagine yourself doing, and just keep doing it and keep finding every opportunity to kind of hone your craft. And when you say genres, I love that, because I think that you know, I think it's really exciting, especially in animation, for us to explore genres that have never really been done before. So even, you know, Spider-Verse, because it was sort of a more all audience and it felt like, you know, like a more live action Marvel movie in good ways, but then it was things you could do only in animation. I think the way we keep pushing the envelope with all genres are going to be great. I'm excited about doing horror in animation. I'm all of that. And I think the more as a writer that you are able to try different things, the more you're going to hone your craft. Like I can't watch horror really, but like horror takes you through every beat and manipulates the audience like no other, you know, like comedy, but in a different kind of way. And so I think the more you really just stretch yourself, even if you're not really, you know, never tried it before, it'll all kind of distill down to something great. And just back to say for Matthew and Hair Love, it's like there were so many dimensions of what he wanted to say in that, and I think that's why the short was very rich, you know. So I think that when you're thinking of writing, it's like you can be very layered in it. I think you know, the ones that don't work for me are the ones that are like, oh, it's a black astronaut, or you know, it's like, or this, that, and it's like, okay, yeah, but what? We get you, you know, we get that in the first scene, but how are you really taking it into another level, you know? So just continue to push yourself.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, you know, with Hair Love, there were so many levels to it. It was like wanting to see more representation in animation, wanting young black boys and girls to see themselves in animation, to see people wearing their hair like that, and then like, oh, like this is a character that I could take pride in, and I want to have their poster in my room, and I want to wear their pin, and you know, the backpack and all of that. And then also, you know, like again, just like, and even with our ending, like also wanting to bring attention to hair loss and how that's very rampant in the Black community, and how alopecia and other issues kind of lead to that, and how that leads to a lack of self-confidence. And, you know, so just really trying to touch it on a lot of different levels. You know, my advice would be writing is rewriting. Writers write, directors direct, producers produce. You know, like if you want to be a writer, you have to constantly be writing, and you have to have more than one idea, because you may go and pitch that one idea and it may be good enough to get you on the radar, but they may not want to make it. But they're like, what else you got? And, you know, you want to be able to, while you have people's attention, come at it from a lot of different angles. And, you know, your first couple of projects may not be the thing that gets your foot in the door. You know, I've been working in Hollywood for 13 years. I've done 30 plus music videos, 2 live action short films, 2 live action feature films, 10 episodes of TV directing. And it took an animated short film for me to get my foot fully in the door, you know what I mean? And in a genre I'd never worked in before. So you just got to keep at it. And, you know, I truly believe that, you know, it takes about typically like 5 years or so for a lot of people to really get that first break, and then about 10 for them to really make it like and be a force in the industry. You know, think of it like that, and constantly be working, and you'll be fine.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Alejandra, you're up next.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for your time. This presentation has been amazing. My question is, well, I would like to know more about your whole Kickstarter campaign. Like, how did it work? What else do you do? What do you think it helped you achieve your goal? And not even achieve it, just surpass it by far. Besides the amazing idea, of course, but like, I don't know, do you send emails, do you contact people, like your incentives and all that stuff?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll be very transparent with it. You know, this was my 3rd Kickstarter campaign. Typically what I do, you know, I've done them for both my live action features, and typically I would launch a campaign after I've shot the project, and then it'd be like, all right, we're about to premiere South by Southwest. And then it's like the week that announcement goes out, then I put the campaign out to try to raise money, you know, for finishing funds and things like that. You know, this was different because it was like I had nothing to show save for some artwork. You know, I didn't have a trailer to drop or anything. It was just a video of me being like, this is the idea, and, you know, like a car salesman or whatever. And the reason why I feel like this Kickstarter was the most successful on top of the idea was I put a lot more effort into building up my social media before the campaign launched. You know, I think when I did in 2016, I maybe had like 25,000 followers. And when Trump got elected, I think for everybody, for me, it made me be like, okay, if you're not saying anything, you know, you're complicit. So you got to be way more active. You can't be scared to be divisive if you say something that, you know, you got to call things out when they're wrong. And when Trump got elected, I just found myself way more active in terms of not even about film stuff, but just like, okay, Kids in Cages isn't right. you know, like typical things that, you know, you would think are just like common knowledge, but for whatever reason, they end up being divisive on social media. And I found my following grow. And I think a combination of talking about political stuff, talking about myself, showing pictures of my dogs, you know, just like people getting to know you as a person. I was able to build it up to around 100,000 followers when the Kickstarter campaign launched. And typically when you're doing a campaign like this, you know, typically maybe 2 or 3% of people that follow you will actually like pull out their wallet and type their credit card information, you know what I mean, to support you. And you got to think about it like that. And the more people that follow you in that way and know you personally and know your journey, are the more people that'll follow you. And I think it was a combination of that, plus like people like Lin-Manuel Miranda, maybe not donating, but sharing the campaign to their 3 million followers, Chelsea Clinton, Ben Stiller. I mean, so many people that, and also being intentional with that, being like, okay, is you donating $20 more valuable, or are you retweeting this to your millions of followers? We had really cool gifts. Like one of the more popular gifts that I've always offered on my campaigns was the idea of having your name in the credits if you donated like 50 or 60 bucks. I never thought this thing was be as big as it was. I mean, you know, on 9 Rides and last fall, we maybe had, you know, 100 names. With Hair Love, we had 1,300 names in our end credits. And I never would have anticipated that, but you know, that many people got involved. And that was always like kind of the more popular one. And just, you know, being creative, you know, depending on what your project is. For us, a book made sense, t-shirts made sense, pins made sense, but that may be different for you and your project. So, you know, just being like very custom and thinking about what people like, and also not doing too many things that are too expensive, because then that takes away, you know, the creation of the gifts and shipping them out take away from your final money that you raise too. So hope that was helpful.
And one thing I want to say is, from a studio side, not one penny was spent in marketing, right? So it's so hard to get people's attention, just to pay attention to anything. So even if you're not doing a Kickstarter, let's say, and you're doing a studio movie, studios value filmmakers that have a connection to their audience, because that just makes it that much easier to find an authentic way in to an audience.
Great.
Thank you so much.
All right, that does it for our questions. I want to thank you all for the questions, but also particularly Matthew A. Cherry, Karen Rupert Oliver. If we didn't before, we all have Hair Love now. We're so happy to be a part of the family, if just for this afternoon. So on behalf of Academy Gold, I thank you, and I personally thank you for this delightful experience and for the gift of your film and the projects to come. So congratulations and thank you.